In this video, we are going to discuss image 3, which is the plotting of a graph of a linear equation. Here it is, y is equal to minus 2x plus 1. It's linear because the maximum exponent of each variable in that equation is 1. If you don't see an exponent, it is 1. So the exponent of y is 1. The exponent of x is also 1. Y is the dependent variable, x is the independent variable. Y is the value, x is the solution. So this is why it is called linear. It's an equation because it has an equal sign. Okay? And yeah, so let us get the y values for each x solution. As you can see, the x solutions are increasing from left to right by 1. And very commonly, that is the case, if not always. X is always increasing from left to right, most times by 1. Okay? Always increasing. X is always increasing from left to right. That is constant. Any graph you see, X is always increasing from left to right. Now, the line on a graph shows you the behavior of the Y values. Always remember that. Take note of that. If you go to image 2, which we discussed in a previous video, you can see that line you see there shows you the behavior of Y. Any line on a graph tells you what the Y value is doing, what the dependent variable is doing. X is always increasing from left to right, but the Y now can do many different things. Okay? In this example, image 2, Y is increasing from left to right, the Y values. That's the behavior of the Y values. Any line on a graph shows you the behavior of the Y values. Bear that in mind. The X solutions are always increasing from left to right. In that case, it is increasing by 1. So let us see what the Y values will be doing for this equation. So what we need to do now is to substitute the X solution into the equation and evaluate for Y. So always we see X, we input the X solutions, and then we see what comes out. What is the output? This is 2 times negative 2. That's negative 2, eh? Negative 2 times negative 4. A negative times a negative is a positive. 2 times negative 4 is a positive 8. Plus 1, 8 plus 1 is equal to 9. So out comes 9. That's the output for 9 when you input negative 4. And we have to do that now for each one of them. So when we input negative 3, negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. 6 plus 1 is equal to 7. Out comes 7. So as you can see, by that table of ordered pairs, the Y value seems to be decreasing. It seems to be decreasing by 2. So most likely, when we input negative 2, most likely we're supposed to get 5. Let us prove that. Each time we input an X solution, it appears that the Y values are decreasing by 2. Here it is. We get a value of 5 when we input negative 2. So if we input negative 1, we should get a value by 5. Take away 2. It's supposed to decrease, and it's supposed to get 3, most likely. Okay, and that actually shows you the definition, the rate of change of Y whenever X increases by 1. So Y seems to be decreasing by 2 when X increasing by 1, and that is the gradient, which is negative 2. Okay, so we can safely put a 3 there. We can safely put a 1 there. We are subtracting by 2 all the time. 1 minus 2, that will give us a negative 1. Okay, 2 minus 2 is 0. 3 minus, negative 1 subtract 2 is negative 3. Okay, we are decreasing by 2. And negative 3 subtract negative 2 is negative 5. A negative and a negative is a negative. Let me make that very clear. Negative means going to the left. Okay, so you are -1 already, and you're going to subtract 2. So you're going more left again. A negative and a negative is a negative. Okay, a negative times a negative is a positive. So there's a big difference between the word times and and. Times in maths means to multiply, and means to add in arithmetic. So when you say a negative and a negative, that's two negatives, okay? You're going more left. So a negative and a negative will bring you more negative. So -1 and a -2 will give you to -3. If you're -1 and you go 2 towards the left, 1, 2, you'll end up on -3. And 2 more negatives again, 1, 2 will end up on -5. A -5 and a -2 will bring you to -7. Okay, and you can even prove it. 2 4s 8. -2 by -4 is -8. And -8 plus 1 will give you -7. Okay, so please bear that in mind. A negative times a negative is a positive. A negative and a negative is a negative. Right, so here we have the table of ordered pairs. So now what we need to know is to plot them on that graph, and it will show you that y will be decreasing as x is increasing. Okay, the line always shows you the behavior of y on a graph. Always bear that in mind. So here we can see a pictorial or graphical display of the behavior of y. Y is decreasing. X solutions are always increasing from left to right. But here now, this line is showing you y is going down as x is going up by 1. And by how much y is going down? By 2. And this will be the gradient of that line. Okay, so y is decreasing. We can see it is decreasing 975. Here it is 975 going down, going down. Okay, so the line on the graph always shows you the behavior of the y values, and the x solutions are always increasing from left to right. As you can see, from -4, the solutions -4 to -0.5, to positive 0.5, the y values are positive. Okay, you can see y values are positive. Okay, as you can see, from -4 to 0.5, all the y values are positive. So that is the solution for positive values of y. The solution for positive values of y is from -4 to 0.5. And the solutions for negative values of y is from 0.5 all the way up to 4. That's where you have the negative solutions of. That's where y is negative. Where y is negative, the solution for negative values of y is from positive 0.5 to 4. So we'll be talking about that in more detail in another video. And some important points to remember: the gradient, the value that y is decreasing or increasing when x increases by 1. So take note of that. And another important note with regards to negative numbers: a negative times a negative is a positive. -2 times -4 is equal to +8. A negative and a negative is another negative. -2 plus -4 will give you -6, because times is multiply and is add when you're doing arithmetic. So please take note. Always view your video with your pen and your notebook and your pencil and whatever, and take notes as you are participating, not just viewing, not passive viewing, as you are participating in the mathematics videos.